بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والدعاء على الهدى والدلالة على الخير، ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Bismillah, we begin inshallah ta'ala with the recitation of the opening chapter of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with which we begin inshallah ta'ala. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Alhamdulillah. Bismillah. Welcome to you all to this course, inshallah ta'ala, wherein we, inshallah ta'ala, seek to learn the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. Just a second. No. Bismillah. Welcome to all of you to the course, inshallah ta'ala, wherein we seek to learn the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, of the first things he was commanded with, and by extension to all of us, the first thing he was commanded with was iqra, iqra, that he was commanded to recite, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the entirety of the affair begins with iqra, with recitation. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that afdalu tilawat, afdalu ibadat ummati, that the best worship of my ummah is tilawatul Qur'an, the highest worship of my ummah. The beginning of the affair of this ummah is with iqra, and the highest affair of this ummah is iqra, is to recite the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of the very first ayats to be revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the command to recite the Quran properly. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا, to recite the Quran properly. That this is something at the center of our religion, as we will see inshallah ta'ala in the next week's session, where we will go through the history of the revelation, the preservation and the transmission of the Quran. The entirety of the religion is preserved through the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That this is at the center of the preservation of the religion in and of itself. And if not for that, then the religion in its entirety would have been lost. And this therefore this is of the most of the most central aspects of our connecting with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that we seek to learn to recite it properly, that we seek to recite to learn it properly. And of those things that which motivate us the most must be the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that on the day of judgment, in the akhirah, that we will be told, will be told rattil kama kunta turattil fi dunya, that we will be told to recite as we used to recite in the dunya, that we will recite in the eternity of the akhirah as we used to recite in this life. So therefore, with that in mind, it befits us to take the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seriously, that that we pay due consideration. Yeah, that this is an affair of utmost importance as it relates to our relationship with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we seek to recite it beautifully. زينوا أصواتكم بالقرآن. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, beautify the Quran with your voices. Yeah, and why? Why beautify? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jameel wa yuhibbul jamal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is beautiful and He loves beauty subhanahu wa ta'ala. And and there is no greater beauty than the beauty that we find within the Quran. That beauty which was manifest within the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, kana khuluquhu al-Quran. So inshallah ta'ala, in this course, we seek to to build a real connection with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, based on sound understanding and sound knowledge, inshallah ta'ala. So inshallah ta'ala, today's session is an introduction. And we will talk about a few things with regards to how we are going to go about, inshallah ta'ala, in this course. Learn the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as we go along, please feel free to ask any questions. Yeah, please feel free to ask any questions. Just unmute yourself and raise your question, inshallah ta'ala. And you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to do that. Um, so we begin, inshallah ta'ala, with our aims and intentions. Our aim and intention is not just to learn a bunch of rules. Our aim and intention is not just, even though those rules are important, no doubt. Our aim and intention is not just to خلاص, to understand a few concepts. No doubt those concepts are important, but our aim and intention in reality is to seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by building a real connection with the Quran. That where you find yourself now at this point of time, by the end of the course, that you should be much further ahead in your journey with regards to the Quran. That is the aim and intention. It's not just, oh, I've learned the rules of Tajweed. I know Tajweed now. I know this now. I know that now. That's not the aim and intention of the course. If that is the aim, if that is our aim, khalas, there's lots of stuff available on YouTube which you can use to get to learn those rules. And yeah, that is not the point. The point for us is to build a relationship with the Quran, a relationship based on knowledge, a relationship based on love, a relationship based on yearning and intimacy, a relationship based on constant companionship, a relationship based on increasing connection. This is our intention with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that when we finish the course and where we find ourselves now, cannot be the same, cannot be the same. Yeah. And inshallah ta'ala, we have good hope in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it will not be the same. That it will not be the same. That our intention is that when we, inshallah ta'ala, when we finish the course, and in reality, when we finish the course, is not the end, but rather the beginning. The beginning, inshallah ta'ala, for that which is bigger and better, inshallah ta'ala, for yourselves as it relates to your journey with the Quran. But when you finish the course, inshallah ta'ala, we find our hearts, inshallah ta'ala, yearning for the Quran. We find our hearts longing for the Quran. We find our hearts moved by the Quran, and we find ourselves with the Quran, inshallah ta'ala, fi dunya wal akhirah. And that is our intention. That is our intention. Yeah, our intention is not just the outward, but the inward, inshallah ta'ala. And the outward without the inward like the inward without the outward, both are not not acceptable with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we begin, inshallah ta'ala, to talk a bit about the course and what we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. As it relates to Tajweed, as it relates to the rules, as it relates to the recitation of the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no doubt there are two aspects. There is a practical aspect, which is recitation in and of itself, and the rules which one learn to help correct one's recitation. Yeah, so there's the practical aspect and there's the theoretical aspect of the science, And inshallah ta'ala, we'll be working on both, as you will see. We'll be working on both, inshallah ta'ala. And both are important. Both are important. Why? No doubt, the recitation is the ultimate objective, is the ultimate aim, but knowing the rules is going to help us in that regard. Yeah, knowing the rules is going to help us in that regard. Understanding the concepts is going to help us in that regard, not just in reciting correctly, which it no doubt will do, but in reality increasing in our understanding and appreciation of the Quran, the nuances and the subtleties of the Quran, and the precision of the Quran with regards to how the Prophet ﷺ taught his companions radiallahu anhum ajma'in, and how it has been transmitted out more than 1400 years after that we know exactly how the Prophet ﷺ recited the Quran to us. That we know that exactly. No one else can claim this. No one else can claim this. Yeah, like the books of the previous nations, they don't even know what the letters sound like, to the extent that they have assumed that this is what it may have sounded like, and they have reconstructed the language in and of itself. Yeah, and we know exactly what it is that was revealed to the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. نزل به الروح الأمين, the trustworthy spirit descended with it, i.e. Jibreel alayhi salam, على قلبك لتكون من المنذرين, upon the heart of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, says that he is from those who warns his people sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we'll be no doubt working on our recitation, inshallah ta'ala. We'll discuss what that entails, and we'll also look at what the rules which we'll be looking at what that entails. And what we will be doing, no doubt, inshallah ta'ala, is going through all the rules that are relevant to us as it relates to the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a comprehensive manner, such that when you open the Quran from Fatiha to Nas, that you know exactly what to do at every single point in your recitation. That there is no point in your recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except that you have learned exactly how to recite it. فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَهُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam that when Jibreel alayhi salam recites to you, then follow his recitation as he recites it. That inshallah ta'ala we'll be going through all the rules of recitation in a comprehensive manner, such that khalas, inshallah ta'ala, you will be completely competent with regards to the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in your understanding of the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is to do with regards to rules and recitations. Both are necessary. Both go hand in hand, especially as the human being, no doubt the human being learns primarily through imitation, which is what children do. Like children, when they start reciting, all you do is you correct their recitation by telling them to, instructing them to imitate you. Yeah, don't do it like that, do it like this. And you teach them. Say min sharri, and don't say min sharri. Say min sharri. Okay? For example. And you don't necessarily explain what the rule is and what you're doing exactly, why you're doing it, and so on and so forth, the technicalities and intricacies. That's not appropriate for the child. But for the adult, the adult is not just capable of comprehending the technicalities, but also the adult, from a perspective, requires an understanding of those intricacies and technicalities to increase in his or her appreciation of the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his or her comprehension and understanding. Like the intellect needs to be satiated as well. Like the human being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given. So we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through with our mind, body, and soul. With our mind, body, and soul. So no doubt when one learns the rules, there is an understanding of the rules, not just what the rules entail, but why the rules are the way they are, and what is the reason, and so on and so forth. This no doubt increases us in our appreciation, increases us in our understanding, and no doubt increases us in our connection with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which you cannot have if all you did was just imitate. All if you did was just imitate, then khalas, like your intellect has not been satiated in that regard. And if you were to be asked, why do you do it as such? All you could say is that khalas, this is how I was taught. All, whereas once you learn the rules, now no doubt you're doing as you were taught, but you also understand why you were taught what you were taught. And this is also key, not just for you to be satisfied with regards to what you are taught, but inshallah ta'ala also that you, inshallah ta'ala, teach others. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. The best of you are those who learn the Qur'an and teach it to others. And teach it to others. And this should not be an intention for us, an intention from amongst our intentions for embarking on this journey, inshallah ta'ala. So but we'll be working on both. Both are necessary. Both are important and both are essential and both go hand in hand. And it's not one or the other, but both are necessary in that regard. Also, something which is we need to be reminded of is the importance of not just reciting, which to a certain degree, inshallah ta'ala, we are aware of, but the point I would like to make is the importance of listening. Yeah. Recitation is good, no doubt, and required matlub, and is what we seek to improve on. But you cannot really improve your recitation unless you improve your listening. Yeah. Unless you understand what is required, you cannot do what is required. Yeah. Unless you know what right sounds like, how do you give yourself a chance to do it properly? Yeah. So listening is key. Listening is important. Listening not just to those who are proficient in recitation, like the reciters of this ummah, the qurra, the plural of qari, the qurra of this ummah, no doubt, listening to them is extremely beneficial with regards to helping you in learning, but at the same time also listening to each other, listening to each other. Why? Listening to each other helps appreciate the issues one may have with regards to one's own recitation and what the issue is and how it ought to be rectified. Says that we benefit from each other, insha'Allah ta'ala, that this is also important. That this is also important. And this is also something we'll be working on, insha'Allah ta'ala, with regards to our recitation, but also that we listen. That we listen, and this is going to help us, inshallah ta'ala, in improving our recitation. And there's the other aspect. There's the other aspect which one needs to be mindful of with regards to the correctness of one's recitation and one's fluency in that regard. One's correctness in that in recitation and their fluency. It is possible, and it is quite often the case that someone is extremely fluent in their recitation, yet they make a lot of mistakes in their recitation at the same time whilst being fluent. Fluency and correctness are not necessarily related to each other. Yeah. fluency and correctness, not necessarily. Fluency just means, no doubt, which is a good thing, that you are someone who has been habituated upon reciting the Quran, such that you can recite it fluently. The more you recite, the more fluent you become. Yeah, the more you recite, the more fluent you become. So this comes by reciting the Quran on a regular basis, in a significant manner. The more you recite, the more fluent you become. But that does not in any way mean that your recitation is correct. Many a person who recites the Quran fluently, their recitation filled with mistakes. Why? Because they did not pay enough attention to correcting their recitation. Perhaps a person who's working on their correcting their recitation may not necessarily yet be fluent, but inshallah ta'ala there will come a point when they become fluent. But the point is, khalas, like a person may not necessarily be fluent, but they may be more correct in the recitation than a person who is fluent, yet less correct in the recitation. So both do not go hand in hand. Just because someone recites fluently doesn't mean they recite correctly. And someone who may struggle to recite yet may yet be better with regards to the recitation, the correctness of the recitation, and both do not necessarily they are not necessarily interdependent. They're not necessarily interdependent in that sense. Yeah. So this is something no doubt we need to be mindful of, and we'll also, inshallah ta'ala, have an opportunity. We'll be doing we'll be working on our fluency as well, inshallah ta'ala, such that our recitation when we finish this course is much more correct and much more fluent and much better, inshallah ta'ala, then when we finish the course as opposed to when we began it, inshallah ta'ala. Any questions so far? Any questions, thoughts, or comments so far? Anything? Okay. Inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah. So, unfortunately, at this point, I will potentially, well, almost certainly, be breaking a few hearts. Yeah, yeah. But la budda minhu, it must be done. It must be done. There's no two ways about it. Yeah. So typically, most of us, most of us generally in the UK tend to be from the subcontinent. So generally, most of us are used to reading from the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, which is also known as the Mughal script, or the Urdu Qur'an, or the Persian script, or whatnot. Yeah. Which is this on the right? Where is it? Yes, the one on the right seems familiar. Yes, no.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm used to.
That's the one. Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. So most of us, well, not most of us, pretty much all of us from the subcontinent, this is the Mus'haf we have grown up using, we have used for all of our lives. Yeah. The one on the right, on the left, the one on the left is the Uthmani Mus'haf. The one on the left is the Uthmani Mus'haf, which is also known as like the Arabic Quran. Yeah, or the Arabic Quran. Um, yeah. Um, so what we so what we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala, is that we're going to, all of us. Is there anyone who's already using the Uthmani Mus'haf from those who are present here? Is there anyone who's used to the Uthmani Mus'haf already? That's what they recite from usually. Is there anyone here? Yes, no? No one? Khair, inshallah ta'ala. Yes? Was there someone?
Yes.
Oh, okay, Jazakallah khairan. Your name, please? Is it Ahmed?
This is Anas Ahmed, yes.
Jazakallahu khairan. Yeah, so we must what we are going to do, and there is no choice in this matter, and I will explain myself as well in the coming slides why that is the case, and I'm sure you will be convinced as well. Yeah, that we are going to stick to the Uthmani Mus'haf. We are going to no longer use the Indo-Pak Mus'haf. And this is good, and we are going to do this, inshallah ta'ala. And it is not as drastic or difficult or dramatic as it sounds. It's going to be an extremely easy thing for you to transition to. And once you have transitioned in a matter of a few classes, and this has happened so many times already, like students will say, like, why didn't we do this from the very beginning? Why didn't we read from this Musaf from the very beginning? This is the constant question. I've not had one instance of anyone telling me, you know what, I'd rather have not done this. Has never been the case. Yeah, and I'm going to explain to you why, and you can see for yourself now why we must be using the Uthmani Mus'haf. Yeah, why we must be using the Uthmani Mus'haf. Yeah. Very similar to the Uthmani, the Indo-Pak Mus'haf is the Turkish Mus'haf as well, which there's some differences, but generally speaking, pretty much is the same with regards to the conventions it follows. Yeah, both of which we are not going to be using. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone in this batch from Turkey, so this is not an issue. We're all of us using the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, most of us. How do you know which Mus'haf you're using? So if you look, open up the Fatiha. Obviously, the script of the Indo-Pak Mus'haf is very distinct. It's very distinct. You can identify it straight away. But if you want to be a bit more precise with regards to identifying it, if it's not evident from the script, as potentially may be the case, if you see in the first word of the Fatiha, Alhamdu, Alhamdu, you can see a fatha on what looks like an alif. You can see a fatha on what looks like an alif. If you see that fatha there, then no, it's not the Uthmani Musaf. It's not Uthmani Musaf. That it's not Rasim Uthmani. And what you're looking at is basically either the Indo-Pak Musaf or something which resembles it, like the Turkish Musaf. Yeah. So this is so you can easily identify just by looking at the first word of Surah Fatiha. Yeah, if you notice that there's a fatha on top of what looks like an alif in the word alhamdu. Okay. In the case of the Uthmani Musafas, you see a squiggly line there on top of what looks like an alif. Yeah, it's actually Hamzatul Wasl, which we'll look at. Don't need to worry about it, just as of yet. But you don't see a fatha, but you see a squiggly line there. Yeah, a squiggly line on top of what looks like an alif. Yeah, when you see that squiggly line there, rest assured that it's the Uthmani Mus'haf. Yeah, it's the Uthmani Mus'haf. And this is the Mus'haf we should be using. This is the Mus'haf we must be using. And why that is the case, we're going to look at inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. Why is it important? Like aren't we talking about reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recitation, proper articulation? Yes, we are. But the proper articulation and proper recitation is predicated upon us comprehending the Musaf correctly. And what the Musaf is telling us with regards to do or not to do, that is going to, no doubt, play a critical role in the correctness in our recitation. For i.e., it is possible that a person can have hypothetically perfect articulation, but yet they make mistakes with regards to their recitation because they are incorrectly reading what's there in the Mus'haf telling them something and they're doing something else. Even though the sound they articulate is correct, the recitation may be incorrect in that regard. So the choice of Mus'haf is critical. Yeah, with regards to it's not a choice. Well, you can pick either one. It doesn't really matter, or yeah, or it's a close call. Nothing of that sort. We're going to see why that is the case. That before you get, in order to give yourself the chance, first and foremost, of articulating, reciting the Quran correctly, that you must be able to comprehend the Mus'haf correctly. Only then can you recite it correctly. So the choice of the Mus'haf is critical in that regard. So that is why before and in the course we're going to spend around the first 1.5 to 2 months just learning the Mus'haf, just learning the Mus'haf, what the Mus'haf is telling you with regards to its signs and symbols and conventions and rules. Yeah, you're just going to be learning the Mus'haf, because only when you do that can you begin to give yourself the chance to read correctly, to recite correctly. Yeah. So let's look at a few examples. Like I said, we'll demonstrate a few scenarios of why we must be reading from the Uthmani Mus'haf and not from the Indo-Pak Mus'haf. Yeah. So just look at very simple examples, yeah, from well-known surahs. So beginning with Surah Al-Fatiha. So if you look on the right, obviously, the writing is in the form of the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, and on the left is basically a digitized form of the Uthmani Mus'haf, the digitized font of the Uthmani Mus'haf. So Maliki Yawmiddin, yeah, as you would read it in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, same in the Uthmani Mus'haf. As you can see in the Uthmani Mus'haf, there is a squiggly line there, isn't it? That squiggly line which we talked about, Alhamdu. And likewise here, Ad-Din, Ad-Din. This squiggly line on top of, so right now you don't need to, this is not strictly speaking a lesson. We are just demonstrating the differences and why we must be reciting from the the Uthmani Mus'haf. Yeah. So don't worry, we are going to go over all of this in detail. Yeah, in minute detail. Okay. So for now, just to point out that squiggly line on top of what looks like an alif, that letter there is known as a Hamzatul Wasl. A Hamzatul Wasl is a specific type of a Hamza, which is never read when you carry on. Yeah, when you join what's before the Hamzatul Wasl to what's after it. So you read Maliki Yawmiddin. You don't say Maliki Yawmi ad-Din. You don't read the Hamza there. Yeah, unless you started on it. Unless you started on it, like Alhamdu. Yeah, then you read it. Otherwise, you don't read it. Yeah, and there's no exceptions to this rule, that you read it when you start on it and you don't read it when you connect it to that which is before it to that which is after it, i.e., you're carrying on reciting. So Maliki Yawmiddin. So and then the next ayah, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Okay. Other than the obvious issue that this Hamzatul Wasl in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf looks exactly the same as an alif. There's nothing to differentiate it from an alif, which is clearly not ideal at the very least. At the very least, it's not ideal because it resembles another letter, which it is not. A Hamzatul Wasl is not an alif, and an alif is not a Hamzatul Wasl. The only role of the alif in the Arabic language is to extend the fatha on the letter before it to make it into a mad. Maliki. Yeah, that's all the alif does in the Arabic language. There are two different letters, separate letters, the alif and the hamza. And this is a specific type of hamza known as a hamzatul wasl. So for example, if you join these two ayat, you wouldn't necessarily come across an issue even in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf. So, Maliki yawmiddini iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And you would read the same in the Uthmani Mus'haf on the left. Maliki yawmiddini iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Okay. So now you will be asking the question, what's the big deal? It's the same, isn't it? Just yeah. Okay, the alif looks like the Hamzatul Wasl, but yeah, it's not the end of the world, is it? Okay. Yeah, Bismillah. Look at the next example, the next two ayats. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. The next ayah, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. So if you look on the left in the Uthmani Mus'haf, what do you notice with regards to ihdina? That is a Hamzatul Wasl. Is a Hamzatul Wasl. I.e., you do not read it if you are carrying on. You read it only if you started on it. So if you were to combine these two ayat, if you were to read them together, which is perfectly acceptable to do, yeah, there's no problem in that regard. So if you were to read it according as it is there in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, how would you read it? So nasta'inu, and joining it to what comes after, how would you read it?
Ihdina.
So you would say, إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Yes?
Yeah, according to the right hand side.
Yes, yeah. But that is completely incorrect. Yeah, if you look into the Uthmani Mus'haf, it's telling you clearly that it's a Hamzatul Wasl. You see that what it's a Hamzatul Wasl, and you don't read it if you are connecting what is before it to what is after it. So then, how would you read it? Nasta'inu.
نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم.
Excellent. This is correct. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. Yeah, so we're just 3 ayahs into the Fatiha and already we have a major issue. Yeah, that you're introducing a letter into your recitation which is not there if you were to join those 2 ayahs. Yeah, if you were to join those 2 ayahs, which people generally do anyway. Or people commonly do, not necessarily always. But the point being here, as you can see, the marking there is misleading. The Iyaka and Ihdina look exactly the same. As you can see there, Iyaka, what looks like an alif with a kasra, and then Ihdina look exactly the same. There's no difference whatsoever. But if you look in the Uthmani Mus'haf, there's a clear difference. The Iyaka, that's what is known as a Hamzatul Qata'. That's a Hamza which is always read, regardless of you starting or stopping or carrying on. That's a Hamza which is always read. So Iyaka will always be Iyaka. But Ihdina clearly is different, isn't it? Yeah. So the Uthmani Mus'haf, first and foremost, clearly differentiates between the alif, yeah, and the Hamzatul Qata', which is always read, the Hamza which is always read, and the Hamzatul Wasl, which is only read when you start on it. Yeah. Whereas the Indo-Pak Mus'haf does not differentiate between them at all. Yeah. And this, as you can see, even within the Fatiha, can lead you into it can cause problems. Yeah. And if this is the case with the Fatiha, then what about the rest of the Quran? Okay. This is the first issue. Okay. This is the first issue. Okay. Anyone not convinced? Yes, Rabia, go ahead.
Hi, sorry. Just so I understand better, because obviously you use the one on the right, not the left. So most people, you say carry on, but some people stop where it says nasta'in. So if you stopped at nasta'in, how would it then continue? Wouldn't that just be ihdina sirat
Yes, it would. Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
So if
yeah,
you didn't connect it, then that would be correct on the right, wouldn't it?
Yes, but that is the point. The Indo-Pak Mus'haf is extremely prescriptive. Like if you do not do exactly what it wants you to do, khalas, you're now fair game for trouble. Whereas the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, the Uthmani Mus'haf, khalas, it liberates you. All you need to do is to know the rules of recitation. Once you know how to use the Mus'haf, khalas, you are now free to do what you want to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Whereas the Indo-Pak Mus'haf does not allow you to do that at all. where it wants you to stop. If you don't stop, khalas, now there's potential for trouble now. Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah, yeah. There's a few more coming our way, so yeah, brace yourselves, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. So this one, Surah Al-Kafirun. How would you read it? What's there on the right, according to the Indo-Pak Mus'haf? The word after wala, what is the word?
Ana.
So how would you read it? I'm not looking for precision. Just read it as you would.
Wala ana abidun ma abattum.
Ana.
That's how
Would you read the alif there in ana?
Yeah, I would.
Yes. But that's incorrect. Yeah, as you can see on the right, on the left, in the Uthmani Mus'haf, the digitized font makes it a bit messy, but in the actual Mus'haf, it's like it's like a standing oval. It's like a standing oval in the Mus'haf. So if you were to go into the Mus'haf, where is it? Just a second. Okay, can you see here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a standing oval on the alif. What this tells you is this alif is not read when you carry on. When you carry on, you don't read it. But if you were to stop there, now you must read it. So for whatever reason, if you stop there, then you say wala ana. But if you carried on, you must not read it. You ignore it. وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدتُّمْ. That's the correct way to read. And the word ana comes many a times in the Qur'an. And you'd be none the wiser because it looks in the Pak Mus'haf, it looks exactly the same as any other alif. The alif in the word ana looks exactly the same as any other alif. Okay? And if you were to do a mad there, that would be incorrect. That would be a major mistake. Yeah, if you were to do the alif, if you were to read that alif, it would be a major mistake because you have introduced into your recitation a letter which is not there if you carried on. It's omitted. Okay, that's another issue, yeah, which occurs quite regularly. Yeah.
Sorry, can you read the one on the left again? You know when you said wala the correct way. Would you mind just reading that again?
وَلَا أَنَا عَابِدٌ مَا عَبَدتُّمْ. Ana, that's it, not ana. Okay.
Ana, okay.
Okay. But you wouldn't know that from the Indo-Pak Mus'haf. You wouldn't know that. Okay. And then again, also the alifs and the next one below, as you can see, Inna alladhina kafaru, there's an alif there, isn't it? What do you do with it? You would guess that you don't do anything with it. Yeah. You would guess that you wouldn't do anything with it because it doesn't seem like you could do anything with it. Whereas in Uthmani Mus'haf, it makes it very clear you do not do anything with it. As you can see, there's a circle there. Yeah, there's a circle there on the. Whenever there is a circle or any letter in the Mus'haf, it means that that letter is never read. Khalas, yeah, it's almost like a punctuation mark. It's almost like a punctuation mark. Wallahu ta'ala alam. But the point being that alif is never read. It comes after the waw al-jama'ah. Waw al-jama'ah, and it's never read. Okay, and it's made very clear in the Uthmani Mus'haf that that letter is never to be read. Okay, whereas in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, Wallahu ta'ala alam, what you would do with it, I would assume that you would guess that you don't read it. Yeah, but khalas, in the Uthmani Mus'haf, there's no guesswork. It's very clear. It's very clear what you do and what you don't do. Okay. Some more examples. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. As you can see on the left. Yeah, sorry, on the right, the Indo-Pak Musaf. أنعمت, أنعمت. Here you read the noon clearly. Yeah, yeah, the noon is clear. And likewise, it's written in Uthmani Mus'haf as well. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم. أنعمت. But the next example below, yeah, in Surah Al-Falaq, yeah, it looks exactly the same in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf from the previous example, isn't it? The noon with the sukoon, yeah, the noon with the sukoon, and then the letter after. So you would potentially think you read it min sharri ma khalaq, like the same way you read an'amta alayhim. You would think you would read min sharri ma khalaq. But if you look on the left, what do you notice? What do you notice? Anyone?
There's nothing above the noon.
There's nothing above the noon. What does that tell you? That tells you that this noon is not going to be read clearly. You're not going to read it as min. Okay? So it's telling you that because of the sheen after it, this noon is affected, this sukoon is affected. So you're not going to read it as min sharri, you're going to read it as min sharri ma khalaqa. Min sharri ma khalaqa. As opposed to min sharri. Yeah, which would be incorrect. So this is called an ikhfa, which no doubt we're going to discuss later, inshallah ta'ala, in detail. But the point being, in the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, so when you read the noon clearly, which is known as an idhar, in Urdu, idhar karna is to make something evident, to make something clear. So an'amta, where you read the noon clearly, and min sharri, where you do not read the noon clearly, they look exactly the same. You couldn't tell by looking at it. Whereas in the Uthmani Mus'haf, it makes it very clear to you that that is not the case. That is not the case. Okay. Next example. Yeah. Walam. So how would you read this? How would you, anyone just, yeah. I'm not looking for precision. I'm not going to comment on the precision or anything like that. Just how would you read it?
I would read it as وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ.
Why don't you read the noon?
So you join it with the kaf and the lam. That's how
But
I've
why?
been taught.
Yeah,
And it
yeah,
stays
but
silent. That's how I've been taught when I was young.
yes, that's
I
correct.
don't know.
I know. Yeah, I wasn't expecting anyone to make the mistake on that because yeah, we all know Surah Al-Ikhlas. But the point being, why is that the case though? That's the
No
question is,
idea.
did you see? Yeah. So you see a sukoon on the noon and then a shadda on the lam after it, and you don't read the noon, but you do the shadda on the lam. But why is that the case though? Yeah. At the very least, it's a bit confusing. Okay. To put it mildly. But if you look on the left in the Uthmani Mus'haf, what do you see? You see that there is no sukoon on the noon. And what you see is a shadda on the lam after it. You see a shadda on the lam after it, which is telling you what? This noon, which was a sukoon, merged completely into the lam and thereby became the noon became a part of the lam. So thereby you have a shadda on the lam. Does that make sense? So the walam yakun, this noon an, because of the lam after it, this noon an became al walam yakul, or instead of walam yakun. Okay, so that's why you read walam yakullahu, and in the Uthmani Musaf, there is no sukoon on the noon. There's no sukoon on the noon, which tells you what the noon is not going to be read clearly. Yeah, you're not going to read walam yakun in any case when you're carrying on. And when you look at the next letter and it shows you the shadda, there's a shadda on the next letter telling you what? The noon has completely merged. It's called an idgham, which we'll study later, inshallah ta'ala, what it means and what we need to do. The noon has completely become the lam. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. Okay? Yeah, so this is much more straightforward and easy to understand, at the very least in this particular situation. And look here, you said وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. The next scenario, how would you read it? The first two
me.
words. Huh?
Sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I would read it as فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you would have to read it فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. Okay, that's how you have to read. That's the correct way of reading it. But it looks exactly the same as the previous scenario. Yeah, you don't do وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ. You don't do that, do you?
No.
And at the same time, you don't do فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. You don't do that. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. Both are not the same, but they look the same. Whereas in the Uthmani Musaf, they don't look the same as well. They look, so there is no shadda on the ya. So you read it فَمَن يَعْمَلْ. You don't say فَمَن يَعْمَلْ by making the noon completely into the ya, by doing a shadda on the ya. You don't do that. فَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ. Okay. And also the tanween as well, as you can see, ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. The tanween as well, see, as you can see, it's skewed here, telling you that you're not going to read the noon of the tanween clearly. You're not going to say khayran yarah. You're going to say khayran yarah. Even the tanween is going to tell you something. The way the tanween is written is going to tell you something with regards to how you're going to read it. So all of these are signs present within the Uthmani Musaf, which are going to help you read correctly. Okay, are we convinced yet, or do we need some more?
Convinced.
Agreed.
Okay, okay. Well, to be honest, there's loads of other issues. Yeah, but the point, this is not but that is not the point of that's not the reason why we came here we are discussing this issue. My intention is only to make it clear that if you are going to take the recitation of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala seriously, and you are going to make a serious attempt to recite it correctly, then you must switch to the Uthmani Mus'haf. And it is not only going to facilitate you to be able to read the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala much more correctly, but also it's going to make that process much easier. Yeah, like none of this is like rocket science. Yeah, it's all straightforward. Yeah, it's all straightforward. All you need to do is that you need to know, this is what it's telling me. Okay, khalas, I know what to do now. That's the first step. Whether you're able to do it yet properly or not, that comes after. But the first thing is that you know, at least in theory, what you need to do. Okay, so thereby, khalas, yeah. So there are lots of other issues, and to be honest, even though it might not seem like that, I'm not interested in going into all of them. Yeah, and to be honest, there are more issues. Like even just a few weeks ago, I came across a few other issues which are not on this list. But the point being, khalas, that's not the point. I think the point has already been made. Yeah, the point has already been made. Yeah. And like in Arabic, they say Allah Ta'ala, the saying slips from my head. Al-labibu bil-isharati yafhamu. For the one of intellect, just an indication is sufficient. Yeah, that they get the point. Yeah, and inshallah Ta'ala, I'm hopeful that we've already got the point. Yeah, that khalas, like the Uthmani Musaf is going to make it, is going to facilitate our recitation of the Quran like much more than the Indo-Pak Musaf. Yeah, this does not now necessarily mean khalas we go around telling people you must not be reading for khalas. Let people be. If like when you come to learn, you come to learn. Yeah, but if people, that's what they're used to, just there's no need to cause fitna. in the community. Khalas, whatever people are used to, let them read. But there's someone interested and keen to learn to recite properly in a correct manner, then khalas, you can take them through the journey with yourself, inshallah ta'ala. And that is good and recommended, inshallah ta'ala. But not necessarily just to go around causing fitna, yeah, saying, there's lots of issues in the end of Pak Musaf. We must only be reading from the Uthmani Musaf. That's not constructive. Yeah, that's not constructive. Let people do what they're doing. Inshallah ta'ala, no doubt there is good in it. So long as they're reading, at the very least, they have the ajr for reading. Yeah, they have the ajr for reading, khalas, and then there are degrees in that regard, inshallah ta'ala. So khalas, so the homework, inshallah ta'ala, the homework between now and next class where we actually begin the course is that we all need to get ourselves an Uthmani Mus'haf, which we're going to use now. Yeah, that's what we're going to use. Okay, so we're going to get ourselves the Uthmani Mus'haf. Okay. And yeah, and the Uthmani Musaf, again, the markings in the Musaf are not random or it's a science in and of itself. It's a science in and of itself which has been codified. The same way the recitation of the Quran is a science which has been codified down to the most minute detail. The rasm of the Quran, the writing, Dabtul Mushaf, the markings of the Mus'haf have also been codified to the last dot, to the last dot. And we'll talk more about that later, inshallah ta'ala. We'll discuss we'll discuss to a certain extent, inshallah ta'ala, Dabt al-Mus'haf, why the markings in the Mus'haf are the way they are and what that entails, and so on and so forth. We'll discuss that in the later part of the course, inshallah ta'ala. But the point being, the marking in the Mus'haf is also a science which has been codified. Dabt al-Mus'haf. Yeah. And there are books upon books written in that regard, with regards to how the markings are placed within the Mus'haf. Yeah, because as we will see next week, inshallah ta'ala, when we go through the history of the revelation and preservation of the Quran, they were not present in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That which was recorded in his presence sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not have any dots or did not have any harakat, fatha, dhamma, kasra, and so on and so forth. Yeah, these were all added later to aid in recitation, and we'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala as well. But the point being, this is also a science, yeah, which is codified and is fixed. Yeah, it's not for now to anything to be changed in that regard. Yeah. So with regards to the Uthmani Musaf, especially in the UK, there's no difficulty in getting hold of it, especially online. You can find it on eBay, eBay very easily, and potentially Amazon as well. Or if you have any bookshops, you may be able to find it. If the bookshops have Arabic books from the Arab world, like from Syria and Egypt and so on and so forth, then you shouldn't struggle finding any Uthmani Musaf will do. But the best is to try to get hold of the Medina Mus'haf, the Mus'haf which is printed in Al-Madina Al-Munawwara, in the King Fahd printing complex. This is like the gold standard. Yeah, and everything is handwritten. Yeah, like and it's written by this Syrian Sheikh, Sheikh Uthman Taha, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala. I believe he's in his 90s now. And there are you can find him online. You can find him online if you search Uthman Taha in YouTube. You'll find interviews of him with English transcription. And he describes how it is to write out the Quran, and it's basically that's his. So he's from Syria, and he's been in Medina for a good few decades now, just writing out the Mus'haf, and typically speaking, if you have been on Hajj or Umrah, then you would have come across these already. Yeah, these Mus'hafs in the Haram, in both Mecca and Medina. Yeah, the small green ones, not the small blue ones. The small blue ones are the Indo-Pak ones. Yeah, the small green ones and the big blue ones. Yeah, these are the most commonly available ones. The small green one being the most commonly available one. So this is the most commonly available Medina Mus'haf. Yeah. You can if you can get hold of these easily online, especially on eBay, if you can't find them in a bookshop. So you get the regular sized green mushaf, or you get the larger blue mushaf. Yeah, the larger blue mushaf. Yeah, both of them are good. Whichever size suits you better. Yeah. I prefer the one which is smaller than the regular size, which is also but this is much more difficult to find. Yeah, this is also Medina Mus'haf, but it's much more convenient to use. So, and there are other sizes available as well. There's one smaller than this, which is really small, and there's one bigger than the bigger one, which is really big as well. But the point being, and those are very difficult to find. As well, but the point being, these ones you should be able to find relatively easily. But the point being, any Uthmani Mus'haf will do. Any Uthmani Mus'haf will do. But if you can find these, better. If you can find these, better. Because these are standard Mus'hafs which you can find anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. And it's better to get to use, like you'll typically be using like a particular Mus'haf. And it's better to get used to a Mus'haf which you can easily find anywhere. Yeah. Easily find anywhere, or it's possibly the ones most in circulation worldwide. Yeah. So I would recommend these, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. The Medina Mus'haf, which is the specific Uthmani Mus'haf printed in Al Medina, King Fahd printing press. Okay. Any questions?
You know, when you say Uthmani Mus'haf, is that a reference to Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu
Yes,
anhu, the
yes, yes.
companion?
We'll talk about that inshallah next week when we do the history, yeah, of the preservation of the Quran. Yeah, it is because Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu, he was the one who commissioned the original Masahif Uthmaniyah, the master copies, which he dispatched to the all provinces of, and he burnt all the other copies which were unverified, which the companions had. He had them burnt and destroyed basically because they were unverified. And he had these commissioned by the committee of the Sahaba, who were the foremost with regards to the Quran, the most learned with regards to the Quran. At the head of them, Sayyidina Zayd ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu, along with like Sayyidina Ubay and Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Masud and others radiallahu anhum ajma'in, that he then dispatched these masahif, which he commissioned, to the different corners of the ummah, and these are the master copies on the basis of which all the masahif were basically then transcribed from. Okay, we'll talk more about that in detail next week, inshallah ta'ala. Okay.
Is the Indo-Pak one from that kind of line as well?
The thing is, I've tried to dig around to get some idea about the history of the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, but I've been so far unsuccessful. And I've tried to even contact a few people who I would have thought would have some idea, but they have not heard back from them. Yeah. But and unfortunately, I don't really know, and I don't want to pretend to know as well the history of the Indo-Pak Mus'haf. Yeah, I do not know. But what I do know is the history of the Uthmani Mus'haf. Yeah, so we'll talk about that inshallah ta'ala. And if you have any information in that regard, I'd be very interested inshallah ta'ala to learn more about the Indo-Pak Mus'haf and why it is the way it is and where it came from.
Jazakallah.
Yeah. Wa yakum. Bismillah. Anyone else? Any questions? Anyone else? Any questions? Okay. And the other thing is stay away from these Tajweed mushafs, these color-coded mushafs. Yeah. It doesn't matter if it's in like obviously not, even if it is Uthmani mushaf, stay away from them. there is no need. There is no need for you to resort to such means. Why? Because as we have seen already in the few minutes where I've just mentioned a few things, the signs are already there with regards to what you need to do. All you need to do is to learn those signs. That's all. Once you learn those signs, it's all good. Yeah. You don't need colors. Yeah. The signs are already there. Everything you must do and must not do, and when to do and what to do and how to do, everything is already there in the Mus'haf. All you need to do is to learn what the Mus'haf is telling you. Yeah. You just need to learn to read the signs. Yeah, and thereby you don't need these color schemes. And obviously, one of the main practical issues is if you get used to one particular color scheme, then you're going to be there's going to be a crutch for you, isn't it? You won't be able to read from any other mushaf. Yeah, you won't find it comfortable to read from any other mushaf other than the one with that particular color scheme. Yeah, and this is not anything standard. And also those colors there to indicate some of the rules of recitation. These are but a handful of the rules. Yeah, what about the rest? Yeah, so the point being, these are not going to help you at all. These are not going to help you at all. And there is no need to resort to such measures. And this is, if anything, it's going to be detrimental. Yeah, like the point we have already been making, all the signs are already there. All we need to do is to learn how to comprehend those signs, what the Mus'haf is telling you. That's all you need to do. And you don't need these colors, yeah, in the Mus'haf, yeah. So do not, yeah. So I was just like, if anyone had this bright idea, Khalas, I'm going to do the Tajweed course. I need a Tajweed Mus'haf. Yes, yeah, just let it be. Don't, yeah, do not entertain that thought. Okay, so stay away from these Mus'hafs. Yeah, do not go near them. Okay. That's to do with regards to some basic things which we needed to talk about before we talk about the course. Anything with anything anyone would like to ask before we just briefly introduce the course with regards to what we're going to do, the structure, and how we're going to do, inshallah ta'ala. Any questions so far, or any comments or any thoughts? Anyone too heartbroken to speak?
Ustad, I've got a question regarding the payment method.
Sorry?
I've got a question regarding the payment methods. I've not been given an email on how to do it.
So please speak to the admin, inshallah ta'ala, in that regard.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
And anything related to what we've been discussing so far?
You know how you mentioned someone can articulate correctly, but the recitation can be incorrect.
Yeah.
Is there an example of that you might have?
Yeah, it's possible that you can make the sound correctly, but yet you're reading incorrectly, isn't it? It's, yeah, the sound is the sound of the letter is correct, but at the same time, you're reading a fatha instead of a kasra.
Right. Yeah.
Or you're not doing you made a shadda into a sukoon or something like. Basically, with the sound is like the sound of the letter is correct, the point of articulation and the attributes of the letter is correct, but still it can be wrong. Like for example, it is possible hypothetically that someone can speak with proper in proper Queen's English, yet speak incorrectly.
Mm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's something along those lines that it's and also with regards to recitation, there's two aspects to recitation. One is the proper, like Sayyidina Ali karamallahu wajha, he was reportedly he was asked, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mean when he says warattil al-Qur'ana tartila? What does this tartil mean? Yeah, it's reported that he was asked and that he, radiallahu anhu, that he replied that tartil means tajweed al-huruf wa ma'rifat al-wuquf. Like tajweed al-huruf is the proper articulation, the proper articulation of letters. Wa ma'rifat al-wuquf. So proper recitation is not just proper articulation of letters, but also knowing how to start and how to stop. For example, the example we looked at, ihdina sirata. One can read the Hamza perfectly and do ihdi. So iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'inu ihdina sirata while joining. Their articulation was proper, but their recitation was incorrect, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, so you can, so both are necessary in your recitation, and we'll be discussing that as well. So we'll not just be going through tajweed, but we'll also be going through and this is a chapter in recitation. It is not as waqf that starting and stopping, how to do that correctly, and when to do that, and when it is good and when it is not good, and what are the different scenarios, and so on and so forth. That's a separate discussion. Yeah. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else? Khair, inshallah ta'ala. Bismillah. So the course has three aspects to it. Three aspects to it. So the central aspect of the course are the theory sessions. Which obviously will be at this time, 7:30 UK time on Saturdays, inshallah ta'ala. And I will try my best, inshallah ta'ala, that I don't go beyond 1.5 hours. That 1.5 hours, I'll keep 1.5 hours as my cutoff, after which, khalas, I say that's enough. I will do the rest in the next class, inshallah. And if we have to do a few additional sessions, that's fine, inshallah ta'ala. But yeah, so the theory sessions are like the central component of the course. Yeah, that's the theory session. But just, yeah, where is this? Some reference books as it relates to the theory. These are good reference books. Yeah. So Tajweed, the rules of the Quran, is a set of 3 books. And the e-books will be made available to you. So after this class, inshallah ta'ala, you'll be given the links for the theory sessions, the recitation sessions, the class recordings, and also the course material folder, and so on and so forth. The admin will send it out to you, inshallah ta'ala. And these books are available as ebooks. The Tajweed rules of the Quran, the 3 parts, they are available as ebooks, and you'll find them in your course folder. And these books, they are good as it relates to explanation. They're good as it relates to explanation, but they can be a bit tedious because of that. It can be a bit verbose with regards to quite a lot of text, but it's good in that regard if you want some good explanation. But as it relates to the English language, and the gold standard with regards to learning recitation, I would say is At-Tajweed al-Musawwar there, illustrated Tajweed by Sheikh Ayman Suwaid. Who, and by the way, the Tajweed rules of the Quran is also written by one of the students, Karima, Ustada Karima. She's a student of Sheikh Ayman as well. So that's ultimately from him as well. But the illustrated Tajweed, it used to come as a set of 2 books, but now the new edition, it comes with as a single book with QR codes which you can scan, and you can hear Sheikh Ayman recite whatever it is that is being explained. So the new edition is actually much better in that regard. It's a single book. The previous edition used to come with a CD, which was a bit it was not necessarily the most user-friendly interface, but yeah, this one is much better. So and it's definitely a very good reference book to have, with excellent pictures and a very concise and precise explanatory texts. So it's a very good book. So, and it's got Arabic and English side by side. So it's a very good reference book for you if you want to have a reference book. So this would be the book to get. But the books on the right, on the left, the set of 3, they're already, the e-books are already going to be provided to you, inshallah ta'ala. So these are the reference books as it relates to your course, inshallah ta'ala, your course material, which we'll be covering. Yeah. So you'll be given access to a shared folder like this. So as we said, the Tajweed rules of the Qur'an, the 3 volumes, you'll have them, and then some additional resources, yeah, like some du'as as it relates to the Qur'an, and also the book of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, At-Tibyan fi Adab Hamalat al-Qur'an, which is Imam Nawawi's book on having etiquette with the Qur'an. Yeah, having etiquette with the Quran, which is an excellent book. Yeah, the scholars, they say Imam Nawawi, he was a scholar par excellence. He was a scholar at the highest caliber, and he wrote, his books were of the same level. But then he also wrote 4 books. He penned 4 books which were for the common people, and everyone must have those books and must benefit from those books, every Muslim. So those 4 books, the Arba'een of Imam An-Nawawi, the 40 Hadith of Imam An-Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, and then Riyadh al-Salihin, Kitab al-Adhkar, the book of supplications, and the 4th one being this book, yeah, Tibyan fi Adab Hamalat al-Qur'an. Yeah, so there's some supplementary material, and other than that, you'll have the slides from each session also shared. As and when you have the session, inshallah ta'ala, the slides will get shared. The slides will get shared in this shared folder for you to have access to them, for you to go through them, inshallah ta'ala, in the shared folder, which you'll be given access to shortly, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, and like we mentioned, or has been advertised, the course. So today is the course overview. Today is an additional session, and after this we will have 40 sessions, inshallah ta'ala. 40 sessions, with the last session being the khatam of the course, the closing session. Thereby you have 39 sessions in between. So 39 sessions are divided into 3 terms with 13 sessions in each term, 13 weeks in each term. Yeah, and in each term we are going to go to the first term. The first term, we're going to go through the very basics, first and foremost with regards to an introduction to the revelation, preservation, and transmission of the Quran, followed by a detailed a study of the Mus'haf. What are the signs within the Mus'haf? What do these signs mean? What do they entail? What are they telling you? And why are those signs there? And what do we do with them? I.e., basically understanding all the signs which are there within the Mus'haf. Yes, is that we become competent in using the Mus'haf, and by Mus'haf obviously we mean the Uthmani Mus'haf, yeah, for obvious reasons which have been elaborated upon already. So we're going to spend a few weeks doing that, yeah, until week 7, inshallah ta'ala, and then we begin going into letters, and you spend the rest of the term going through the proper articulation of letters. So this is like the foundation of your recitation, understanding what the Mus'haf is telling you and the proper articulation of letters. So this is the first term, inshallah ta'ala. And then the next term is going through some of the most frequently applied rules of recitation. Yeah, like the rules of lam sakina, the rules of mim sakina, the rules of noon sakina, and the different scenarios of nabr, the different scenarios of iltiqa al-huruf, the meeting of letters, and iltiqa al-sakina. And so going to go through, the second term is where we'll be having more of this rules and so on and so forth, inshallah ta'ala. The most of the rules which we're going to cover. And the third trimester is going to be, inshallah, the third term, inshallah ta'ala, is going to be a bit more conceptual. No doubt we'll be talking more about the Hamzatul Wasl and its intricacies, and then going into a discussion with regards to elongations, mudud, and the rasm of the Quran, and then the discussion on Sifat al-Huruf, characteristics of letters, and a few more topics, inshallah ta'ala, which we don't necessarily need to elaborate upon now. So this is what we'll be covering, i.e., over the duration of this course, we'll be covering everything that you need to know with regards to the recitation of the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, such that from Fatiha to An-Nas, that you know what you need to know with regards to reciting it correctly. And there is at no point will you be left wanting with regards to that I've not learned this. Yeah, everything you need to know. Everything you need to know with regards to the recitation of the Book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay? Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes.
What about weeks 13, 26, and 39?
Yeah, that's the question I was waiting for. Just yeah, we'll come to that. Yeah, we have something special lined up for that. Yeah. So, and the sessions, you'll have the recordings made privately available to you on YouTube, which you'll have access to, inshallah ta'ala, even after you've completed the course, inshallah ta'ala. So this session will be made publicly available because it's an open session, and and you're free to share it with anyone who might be interested to know about the course. If they want to join and they want to know what it is, then you can feel free to share it. Today's class will be made public, but all the other sessions will be made available to you privately on YouTube, so it's easily accessible to you, and you'll have access to it even after you finish the course, inshallah ta'ala. The recordings of all the sessions. So now coming back to Anas's question with regards to what do we do at the 13th session of every term? Yeah. So we have review sessions, inshallah ta'ala, which is nothing to worry about. In fact, they are the most look forward to sessions in the term, because they're quite fun, because what we do is we review everything that has been covered in that term, but we do it on Kahoot. So I don't know, as most of you or all of you might have at least heard of Kahoot. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's basically like an online. It's like a game. Yeah, it's like a quiz game, which people get quite competitive about, and it's just like a fun way to revise what we've covered so far. Fun as in it's fun for me. Yeah. So to revise what we've covered in the term, so that's what we do at the end of every term. So we have a review session, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. So yeah, so each review you'll have like 3 rounds of 10 questions each, and khalas. So we go through them, yeah, and have some fun, inshallah ta'ala, and at the same time review what has been covered so far. Inshallah ta'ala, and if there are any gaps, we try to fill those gaps, inshallah. Yeah. So that's to do with the theory sessions. Yeah, that's to do with the theory sessions. Okay. Recitation sessions. So recitation for the men will be before the class, and for the women will be after the class. Yeah. Just before the class for men, and just immediately after the theory session for women. So what we'll be doing in the recitation session, so we have 40 weeks of classes. What we will do, so starting from next week, inshallah ta'ala, we'll be going through the short surah. So Al-Fatiha, and then from Surah Al-Nas to Surah Al-Qadr. So that's and Surah Al-Bayyinah, because it's long, we split it into 2 parts. So this gives us 20 in total. So Al-Fatiha, and then from Al-Nas to Al-Qadr. Yeah, with Al-Bayyinah being split into 2. And what we do is we recite, so you'll be reciting to me, inshallah ta'ala, the men separately before the session. You'll be given the meeting links for that, and the women after the session, the theory session. So you'll be reciting every surah twice. So for example, week 1, you'll recite Surah Al-Fatiha, and if there's anything I need to point out, I'll point it out to you, and you'll go, inshallah, work on that. and you come back and you recite it the next week, and to review the comments which were made, and then we progress week 3 to the next surah, Surah An-Nas. We do the same with Surah An-Nas week 3 and week 4, and so on and so forth. With the intention being here is that it's not that we are only doing the short surahs. Yeah, it's not that we are only doing the short surahs. The short surahs, which are the most familiar to us, inshallah ta'ala. What we are in reality doing is rectifying our recitation in general using these surahs. So, for example, if you have an issue with regards to a particular letter, it's not just that you're rectifying that particular occurrence of that letter in this particular surah, but you're rectifying it in general with regards to your recitation. So the point being, we are using these surahs, these short surahs, to rectify our recitation in general. Yeah, to rectify our recitation in general, and using these as a means in that regard. Yeah, so these will be the recitation sessions, inshallah ta'ala. Does that make sense? And you'll be given audio recordings of Sheikh Ayman to listen to. You'll be given the links so that you can listen to his recitation and practice. Yeah, Sheikh Ayman, he is without by consensus, pretty much by consensus, the most knowledgeable person with regards to the recitation of the Book of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala alive today. Sheikh Ayman. Yeah, he lives currently in Jeddah. He's from Syria. He's Syrian. His recitation, as you will see when you listen to his recitation, is like crystal clear. His recitation, as you listen to it, when you listen to it, is crystal clear. So you'll be using his recitation, listening to his recitation to practice for yourself. So between now and next class, you'll be practicing Surah Al-Fatiha, listening to him. And then you'll recite it to me the first week, and then go back if there's anything I would point out and work on it and come back for the next week, and so on and so forth with the other surahs. So you'll be given his recitation to listen to and work on, inshallah ta'ala. So for weeks 1 and 2, for example, Surah Al-Fatiha, weeks 3 and 4, Surah An-Nas, and so on and so forth, like we just mentioned. Yeah. And note that will be available on YouTube, but you can also download apps, as you can see in Android and Apple devices. These particular apps, yeah, Qur'an for Android in Android, and Qur'an by Qur'an.com in Apple, both are the same app, in which you have the recitation of Sheikh Ayman. Sheikh Ayman's recitation, as you can see, if you select, you can go down and you see Dr. Ayman Suwaid. Yeah, you can select his recitation and you go into the settings and you can download all the surahs with his recitation, and then you can listen to his recitation verse by verse in any place in the Quran. So these apps are very good in that regard. These two apps, Allah Ta'ala, I don't know of any other apps. These which have his recitation. Okay, so Dr. Ayman Suwaid. So you can use these two apps, yeah, whichever device you have, Android or Apple, you can use these apps, inshallah ta'ala, okay, to listen to his recitation. Okay, so that's the recitation sessions. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Inshallah ta'ala. And finally, the reading circles, with that we'll finish, inshallah ta'ala. The reading circles. So this is to, inshallah ta'ala, help us work on our fluency, help us get reading the Quran from Fatiha to Nas. And we're going to use Surah Al-Baqarah in that regard, inshallah ta'ala. So over the duration of the course, we are going to complete between us recitation of Surah Al-Baqarah, inshallah ta'ala. So what you'll have is for each week you'll have a portion of Surah Al-Baqarah. Yeah, you'll have a portion of Surah Al-Baqarah given to you, say verses 1 to 7, verses 8 to 20, like short portion, which you will get together amongst yourselves, the brothers amongst themselves, or the sisters amongst themselves, at your own time, at what suits you. Shouldn't take more than 15-20 minutes, sometime during the week, whenever it's convenient for you, and you recite amongst yourselves the So you listen to the Shaykh and you recite after him, and you practice reading the Quran, inshallah ta'ala, to help you become fluent and become comfortable. And if there are any questions, and I would hope that there are questions which arise with regards, oh, what to do here, why do we do that here, and so on and so forth, you bring it to the class the following week, and at the beginning of every class, I myself will read that particular portion for the week. And if there are any questions, that will be the opportunity for you to raise them at that point. Before we start the theory session, I'll recite that portion for the week, yeah, in the class. Okay, so this, inshallah ta'ala, is to help you with regards to your fluency, inshallah ta'ala, and also putting to practice that which you're learning in the class. This will be the reading circles, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah, and those are the three aspects of the course. So that is the course, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah. Just be mindful. Next week's class will be slightly longer. Yeah. Will be slightly longer in the sense because we have to go through the entire history of the Quran, and we have only 1 week to do that. So next week's class will be an exception. It will be long, and so thereby I'm just informing you beforehand. I would expect it to be around 2 hours long. We'll go through the entire history of the Quran from whence it was revealed, from revelation to how we have received it. So that's going to take some time. So next week will be an exception, where the class will be around 2 hours. So before one in that regard, inshallah ta'ala. If need be, we'll take a 5-minute break in the middle if you guys feel you need to. But yeah, that's just for next week. Otherwise, classes will just be 1.5 hours, inshallah ta'ala, after which we'll stop and carry on the week after. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions? Is that okay?
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Khair, inshallah ta'ala. Yeah. Any final questions before we finish? So between now and next week, those of us who don't have an Uthmani Mus'haf need to get yourselves the Uthmani Mus'haf. Yeah, and download these apps for the Quran onto your mobile devices. Start listening to Sheikh Ayman for the next week. That when we'll officially be starting the course, you'll be reciting to me Surah Al-Fatiha. And also the men amongst themselves and the women amongst themselves try to organize these reading circles. We're going to read the short passage from Surah Al-Baqarah every week, inshallah ta'ala. So just read it amongst yourselves, and no doubt there'll be loads of questions, and bring those questions to class, and by all means we'll inshallah ta'ala answer them in the class. Okay, anything else before we finish tonight? Anything else? Yeah, and gift the Indo-Pak Mus'haf that you use to someone who reads from the Indo-Pak Mus'haf. Yeah, don't just let it be there. Just give it to someone who reads from the Indo-Pak Mus'haf, and you get yourself the Uthmani Mus'haf. Okay. Yes. And yeah, and if there's anyone who's interested in joining the course, Bismillah, you can share with them the class recording, and you can share with them the details to register, inshallah ta'ala. It's all good. Yeah. So next week when we start the course, if we like actually start the course, they're welcome to join, inshallah ta'ala. Okay. With that, we finish now, inshallah ta'ala, and carry on next week. So see you, inshallah ta'ala, next week. اللهم انفعنا وارفعنا بالقرآن الكريم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار واجعله لنا شفاء وشفيعا وحجة يا رب العالمين. وجزى الله عنا سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ما هو أهله. وجزاكم الله كل خير والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله
وعليكم السلام
وبركاته.
ورحمة الله وبركاته.